Faith has a new frequency. The Spirit of Huntsville. KHSPLP, Huntsville, Texas. Spirit 94.3.
Hi, I'm Kanan. No, listening to Spirit Radio.
All right, friends, welcome in as we get rocking and rolling here on this faithful Friday. Time now 7:57. Every time I look at a clock, it's always 7:57, and it reminds me of Boeing because of the Boeing 757. We are here. Welcome in as we get rocking and rolling. Underwriting support for this program is made possible in part by Sam Houston Memorial Funeral Home, their website, SHMFH.com, and also Elliott's Jewelers. He's online at elliotsjewelers.com. We do want to welcome you in. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this Faithful Friday. And just Jack and I were talking a little bit before the show. It's always good to have a conversation, and I wasn't in a terrible rush this morning. I was a little bit late, but I enjoyed just chatting with you, Jack. So Jack Durish making his debut here on Spirit Radio now. Welcome in, Mr. Jack.
Oh, thank you. It's a first for me. No, it isn't. Oh my God, no. What am I saying? Be prepared. I have made mistakes before.
Is this your first time doing radio?
No, I was going to say it was, but no, I'm not a virgin.
Okay, Jack is not.
And I made a big mistake that day too.
Well,
be prepared.
Well, we're glad to have
Keep your finger on the good taste switch.
Yeah, that switch don't work, Jack. So. Well, Jack is here. First and foremost, my dad always said to say Mr. or Mrs. unless they've told you otherwise. Jack told me the first time I met him several years ago, he says, don't say Mr. Durish, just say Jack. And so...
no, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You don't remember?
I said Captain Jack.
Oh, Captain. That's right. You did say Captain Jack.
See that?
Wow.
I may be old, but I got a better memory than you.
Well, Jack, it is good to see you. You and I have become good friends over these past few years, just, meeting at the chamber. Years ago, I remember at Farmhouse, you were there at the small business breakfast. I know they just had another one at Honor Cafe. I'm looking forward to getting back to those. I haven't been able to go to them because of this show, but I have a young man in training that hopefully will be taking over for me on those Thursdays so I can get back into the rhythm of the chamber breakfast. I miss those.
Are you going to wait for his voice to change?
No, his voice he's all right. He does a good job.
Not quite like yours.
Yeah, so that's all right. I have a button on here that I just push, and it says radio voice, and I push that, and that's what makes it sound a little bit better.
Okay. It's working on my hearing aids, too.
Well, Jack is here this morning. We do want to welcome you in. A lot of times I do an inspirational kind of open, but I wanted to dig right into some really important stuff, and we'll get to know Jack here in just a little bit as well. But Jack is the former commander of our great VFW post here in Huntsville, and does so much for our community and our veterans, and still engaged with the VFW. And he's got some really insightful information. As we were talking before we came on, some things about the VFW that I didn't know about. And it's kind of like when you're a pastor's kid, you're called a PK. Well, I don't know if there's a term for this, but I'm a VF kid, a veterans VFW kid. I grew up in the VFW, so there's got to be a term for that somewhere.
Well, we used to have Army brats, so I guess you're a VFW brat.
Okay, that would work. My dad would probably approve of that.
Probably.
I grew up in our local VFW in Georgetown, eating Red Baron pizza from the Red Baron Pizza Oven. Back then, if you wanted to play dominoes, they had dominoes. And so I learned how to eat good pizza, Red Baron, if you will, and play dominoes at our local VFW growing up.
No, I wasn't around that. My father avoided the service, so I didn't grow up with it.
Yes, sir. Well, I do want to dig in. We'll talk here in a moment more about the VFW. But for the folks out there, many people, of course, know you. We are on social media as well this morning, Jack, and folks see you all the time here on the show. We're on episode number 703. But maybe for some new people today, just let us know a little bit about your story, if you don't mind. Just kind of let us know how you got here to Huntsville and whatever you'd like to lead on with. I think it'd be great.
I think my wife is listening, and she'll be snickering at this because she was the one. She pushed me for years to get into. We'd be coming out of the supermarket near like Memorial Day or Veterans Day, and there'd be a veteran with the Buddy Poppies. And she'd say, "Why don't you join?" And I said, "No, that's for the real soldiers." And that's a big, long story, backstory, and that why I use that terminology. But I just avoided it, and I know a lot of guys do, and now gals. You know, we have men and women veterans who qualify, who have, for the VFW, have to have served in the combat zone during a period of active conflict, and I did not want to join until we started hearing the news of all the problems with the VA and other government programs that weren't being administered too well. And I decided then, you know, we survived war by taking care of each other. And maybe we're going to have to take care of each other to survive the peace. And that's when I joined. And the first post I joined an American Legion and a VFW post. They have different requirements, different groups of guys. And I wasn't happy with either one of them. And I lasted 2 years until I finally said, okay, this is not working. This is not giving me what I wanted. I want to help veterans. So I went shopping posts, and I found they're all different. So the VFW is not a homogenous thing. They're all mirror images, cookie cutters. And I found one in Dana Point, California, where I was living at the time, that really was dedicated to helping veterans. They didn't have their own bar. They didn't have their own clubhouse. Nobody's getting a paycheck. We were out working very hard to raise money, and every cent of it went into helping veterans. We even had a couple of people, full-time retired people, sitting in an office that the city of Dana Point gave us, and veterans would walk in, I can't pay this bill, I got this problem. We were cutting checks for them, no expectation of repayment. We were making about $120,000 a year and spending every cent of it every year. We were also helping veterans at camp, not veterans, but active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton. And we had these young kids down there, you know, they go from a $10 a week, I guess, I don't know what kids get for allowance these days, but they get in the Marines and they become an E3 or an E4. They're making maybe $1,500 a month. They're rich. They can go out. They got housing for free. They got food for free. They can go out and buy a Corvette. What do they care? Then they get married because they're good-looking kids, fit, and, you know, stand-up kids. And then they get deployed, and now you got these young women with a baby in the arms or a toddler hanging on their leg, and they're having to live on the California civilian economy because there's not enough room for them on the post housing. They were reusing disposable diapers. We were hauling crates of disposable diapers down there. We had truckloads of food going down. We were taking furniture to them. We were doing everything. And I came here, and the first thing I did was I started shopping VFWs, and I didn't even know we had a VFW in Huntsville, but it was right there at the museum. And again, no bar, it's non-smoking, non-drinking environment. We are dedicated to helping veterans, and every cent we raise, that's what it goes for.
Well, Jack, your journey has been great as a retired U.S. Army captain, if I'm not mistaken.
Not retired.
Not retired.
No, the Army had...
What's the official title then? How would you...
Former.
Former, okay, former.
Former.
Retired now, though.
He's definitely retired now.
And also, you know, faithfully serving our country in Vietnam. You know, I think a lot about my dad and how much I miss my dad, Jack. And I never told you this, but I think that's why I feel like there's a special connection between you and I, because you remind me a lot of my dad, and that's in a positive way. And I miss my dad. I think about him every single day. And so when you come in and share stories, my dad loved to share. He loved to share a lot of jokes, and you've got jokes too. But I'll tell you, there's something that just when you come in, I think of my dad, and I wanted to say thank you for that, because I miss my dad, and And when you come and talk and share your stories, I'm just like, man, that brings me back home. So I wanted to tell you that. I've never told you that. I don't get too sappy on this show, but I wanted to tell you that.
You never get too sappy on this show. I've watched this show. He gets sappy, right?
So, but an incredible journey as you served in Vietnam, and that's where the Captain Jack comes from when you were a captain in the U.S. Army, and then living there in California. How many years were you in California for?
I went there in 1974.
Okay.
And came here 5 years ago. When I first got there, let me tell you, California back in 1974 was heaven for an entrepreneur. I could start a business, get a checking account with a business name on it, have a business card printed, pay a $25 license fee. I was in business. And I did that a couple of times. And now to do that same thing would cost thousands of dollars. And it's not business friendly. Many of the companies that I worked for, I worked with all the major auto companies that were headquartered in California. You had Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, Mazda, and they're moving out. And who was it we just heard of? Well, of course, Elon Musk moved everything here. And who was it that just moved to Texas? It was a big one. And it's simple. It is not business friendly. And it's insane. When the Cold War ended, everybody thought that's it for California, because a lot of companies there were in the defense industry. Mm-hmm. And it was, oh, boy, that's it. This San Andreas Fault's going to split, state's going to fall in the Pacific, and that's the end of it. And it did. There were a lot of places had to make major changes. A lot of people laid off. In 2 years, every one of those jobs was replaced, and more were added, because those companies just instantly switched from defense contracting. They went into communications and other high-tech businesses, and of course, companies, the Silicon Valley, Apple grew to enormous sizes, and so many other startups there. And it was doing really well. But then when the politics went insane, the whole place went insane. And it's just one homeless encampment.
Yeah.
All the beachfront is now a homeless encampment. When they got them in Malibu, we kind of snickered at that, because all these movie stars and producers living in Malibu, we're for the homeless people. Well, now you get to live with them. I'm out of here, you know.
That's tough.
And it is, it's California is run by people who don't have to suffer the consequences of their decisions.
When did you guys make the decision to move to Texas? Because you've been here for a while now.
We've been here 5 years. Actually, we came here on the last day of February 5 years ago. So we're now into our 6th year.
Was there something, I know, you're talking about kind of the climate there in California with things that are going on. Obviously, that played into the decision of coming here. But what was like the main deal? How did you find out about Huntsville, Texas, of all places?
Yeah, when we got here, that's the same question we were constantly hearing. Why Huntsville? And my wife finally looked at him and said, why not Huntsville? Are you crazy? And I understand it, because most of the people who asked that question were younger. Mm-hmm. And to them, you move from California, we're dreaming of going to California to be in the glitz and the glamour. and let me tell you, folks, it's not all that glitzy and glamorous anymore.
But what put Huntsville on the radar? I mean, there's somewhere something happened.
Well,
right?
we got a realtor in Dallas was recommended to us. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was showing us suburbs around Dallas. Now, this was, of course, at a distance. We're not going to fly in and out of here. We were still looking at Idaho, Tennessee, we dismissed Florida pretty quickly.
Did they ever recommend Georgetown?
No.
You know,
no.
that's my hometown. That was the number one town to retire in America.
Really?
It was. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't mention it.
Well,
We're glad you're here, though.
oh yeah, but it was when, I couldn't be there. Now, I learned this lesson long ago from my parents. When they bought their first house, they went on a weekend to see it. They fell in love with it. My brother-in-law, we had a stream in the backyard and woods. Woohoo! We were in hog heaven. And then on that first Monday we were there, we discovered on the other side of those woods there was a ready-mix company. And the dust clouds from them pouring concrete or the cement and the sand and the gravel and everything, mixing it, and trucks, these huge ready-mix trucks running up and down the roads. It was like, holy cow. So when you buy a house, you're also buying a community, and you better take a look at that community. So I would use Google Earth, and I would go down to the street level view, and I would be like driving the streets. They showed me Waco. Yeah. Waco has terrible streets. I'm looking at potholes. That's pretty bad. and well, that looks like Irvine, California over there. It's flat, and there's all these box houses crammed together. Why would they do that in Texas? So it just we just dismissed those, and we went on Zillow. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, Zillow. Yeah.
And one day Arlene, my wife, found this house, and it looked really nice. So I went down on the street level and I started driving around. Oh, this is a nice looking community. We didn't realize it was Elkins Lake.
Ah, okay.
And look at the lake there, and open spaces. And was that a deer running across there? Oh, cute, And of course, my wife, she was born and raised in Los Angeles, Southern California girl, and she never had any experience in small town. I had lived I grew up Cockeysville, Maryland. There's a small community north of Baltimore. Let's tell you, Huntsville looks like a metropolis next to that. I'd lived for a time in Hawaii, and Hawaii is a very small town. Honolulu is very small townish.
See, when I was talking about my dad, he was stationed in Hawaii for a while.
Yeah, I was stationed there for 3 years,
Okay.
and when I got out, I wanted to stay. And then I discovered the only two industries there are tourism and agriculture. And unless you own it, you're not going to make much money at that. So every man I knew was working 2 jobs, and the wife was working a full-time job. And it's like, this is you're living in paradise, but you can't enjoy it. So I got there and went to Fort Collins, Colorado, another town much like this, the University of Colorado, Fort Collins is about the same size as Sam Houston, and the town, like 20,000 student population, 20,000 civilian population, and they did have Teledyne water pick there. That was their one industry, and so I've lived around small towns, and she never had. So I was very worried about how she was going to adapt to this, and up to the last minute, it was like, "Are you sure?" She would you shut up? And let's get on the plane and go. And
So y'all just came to visit first? Was that
no?
Or were y'all prepared?
The realtor drove all the way down here from Dallas. He did a walkthrough. The house we were looking at didn't suit. It had an upstairs, and we knew that there was going to come a day we don't want to climb stairs. So he found another place for us all on one level, and he did a walkthrough with us on FaceTime, and we said, make an offer subject to our visit. So when we got here, we made the final decision to commit to the, and we got here the day after the big freeze.
Wow.
And it was so funny. We had a reservation at the Quality Inn there on Montgomery and the highway. And we walk in, and there's this girl behind the desk, and she is a big girl. She's a real biker chick. She's got the tats. And she's got the best smile. I fell in love with her smile. And she says, "Oh, yeah, I'm Mr. Durish. Thank you. I'm so sorry, but I have to tell you, the elevators aren't working. But I got you a room on the first floor." I said, what do I care about elevators?
Perfect.
I've been on airplanes and driving for hours, and I just want a bed. You got a bed? Yeah, I got a bed. Oh, but we don't have any hot water. I don't care. I want a bed. So we hauled our luggage in, and we got the bed. And then the next day, we met the realtor at the house, and we did our walkthrough. And Arlene was looking at the paint, the color. It's like, it's bad. We can paint it. Other than that, it was just perfect for us. So we said, we're in. And so we did a 48-hour closing.
Wow.
I said, we didn't have time. It was a cash deal. Coming from California, yes. Trust me, we did not bring our politics. We did not inflate the economy here. Trust me. And Arlene went native.
Yeah, that's cool. I love the story. And I did have a chance to visit California. It was in San Diego and Del Mar, and I will say this: some of the nicest people that I've met. That part of the state, very nice people, very welcoming. And for me, never going, I went to a broadcasters conference there. We're a sports talent agency that I used to be, I'm still a member of, but they had a conference there, and there was about 18 of us or so that went from all over the nation. We met there in Del Mar. And some of the, when you talk about the metro areas, obviously there's a lot that goes on, but then you get out into some of these smaller areas, and my whole perception of what I thought it was changed, because I was like, I went to the grocery store, people said hi to me. And I said, well, I didn't think they did that here. And I mentioned that to a guy. He goes, oh, well, you're in the nice part of our state. That's what he told me. But it was neat, And I think here's something that I want to say, that I think if you have the mindset and the attitude of just being courteous to people, maybe that's a message for today, is just be courteous to people and nice. And I think sometimes that'll reciprocate back,
One of my favorite moments with Arlene, bringing Arlene here was like taking a kid to Disneyland for the first time.
So she was excited about it.
I got pictures of her feeding the deer. Mm-hmm. She's holding the corn, and she's there she's like a child, like, oh, look at me, And one day she turned to me, we were driving through Elkins Lake, and waved to a guy who was walking, and he waved back. She said, do you know him? No. Well, why'd you wave? It's what you do.
Yeah.
Oh. and it was, I guess we were here 6 months, and she turned to me and said, I've never been yes ma'am so much in my life. She's been adapting. I could never listen to country music in the car in California. Here, that's all I can have on. She has her favorite stars of the whole thing. And she's not a traditional. She's not in the bluegrass or the real traditional stuff. And I know a lot of people complain about that. And I like all music.
Oh, yeah.
All, as long as it's good. I've even heard rap that's good, surprisingly.
That'll be next episode. We'll have Captain Jack, the rap version of Captain Jack. But that's neat. You think about that journey, and I wanted to tie into this. Well, I'd like for you to lead in. You've already mentioned, being active with the VF there, and I say VF because that's what my dad always said, the VFW. But lead us into the journey about, you moved here. How did you get connected? Was the VFW one of those first things that you were maybe thinking about after you got here? And then after you do that, we'll take a break because we want to talk about a program that's going on at the VFW. But lead us into the story about, you got here. What was on your mind? How did you connect to the VFW? Was that right away? Did it take some time? Maybe highlight that a little bit.
No, that was one of the things that I wanted to continue doing. I was very active in the VFW in California. When I finally found a post that was active. And that's where I was going to shop. At least this time I understood I got to shop. So I first went to the Conroe VFW. And I didn't know there was even one here in Huntsville.
Were you a commander at the one in California? No. Okay.
I ran different... I've been a problem. One day my youngest son asked me, "What do you do for a living?" And I kind of chuckled about it. I said, I do for my friends that which they are incapable or unwilling to do for themselves.
That's on your business card.
And no, on my business card, I was a consultant.
Okay. Well, see, it's a consultant.
And if one of my friends, and this is important, when I first started in business, I would take any client, and I had some real unfun people.
Yeah,
Thank you for that help. My wife has even picked up some of my Army vocabulary. It's hard to live with. Any rate, my friends would say to me, "Jack, can you?" "Yes." "You don't know what I need." "I don't care. You're my friend. What do you? Tell me what you need." "Have you done this before?" "No." "But how can you?" "I'll learn."
You just find a way. Yeah.
I taught myself how to program computers when that became an issue. And that's what I did in the Army. This is why I was so reluctant. I went to the Army after I graduated from law school. And they said, oh, the Navy recruiter, he was like, I just won the gold star for recruiting here. Got a kid with a Coast Guard license, a law degree, and he wants to join the Navy. You're going to be an instant lieutenant in the Navy as a lawyer. No. The only thing I learned in law school is I don't want to be a lawyer. What do you want to do? Those little boats you got running around Vietnam, I'm your guy for that. Are you out of your mind? You're going to die. Seems fine to me. So the Navy, they messed around. It took them months to process me. And I decided I better have a plan B. So I went to the Army, and they said, you're going to be an instant captain, lawyer in the Army. Nope. What do you want to do? Infantry. Are you out of your mind? You're going to die. What the heck? So they enlisted me. They took, just pull out your hand, you're in. And I went in as an E1, $89 a month.
Wow, yeah.
Big money for a law school graduate. And I just had to get out of town. I had to get away from home. I had to get away from everybody's expectations. And I went in. So I went through a year of infantry school, basic advanced infantry officer candidate school. And I get out, and they look at me and they say, I don't care what agreement we have with you. The needs of the service prevail. And they sent me to Vietnam as an adjutant general corps officer. And I was upset. And the G1, when I reported to the 9th Infantry Division, wanted to put me in a platoon. Oh, wait a minute, you're not an infantry officer. It says right here an infantry officer, but you're not an infantry officer. So he sent me to headquarters, the adjutant general's office, and the G1, I was stuck in his head, and the adjutant general officer was messing things up, and so he would come to me privately, backdoor, and say, you got to fix this problem. So I would fix it. The first one I fixed, and then it was like, oh, I got my crazy young lieutenant. I got another problem. Go fix this problem. And I fixed it. And I was bullying colonels and majors, fixing problems they had created. But I had a general in my hip pocket. I actually had a colonel one day. He looked at me and he says, can't you even say please? And I picked up his phone and I handed it to him. And I said, I don't have time, sir. Call General O'Connor. Maybe he has time to say please. And I walked out. That was why I did not have a very long Army career.
But there was a lot of, you think about that, though, in the initiative, Jack, that you took. Captain
but that's
Jack.
what I did. But you asked the question.
So,
I got to get back to I'll answer your question. That's what I did in the VFW out there. I fixed problems. Okay.
So when you came here,
and
you
that's
had
what
that.
I did in business life. That's what I've done all my life is I fixed problems. And I get here, And I finally end up at this post.
After visiting the Conroe post, and you were looking around.
I look around, and I find out this one, and they had a bar and everything. I wasn't interested in that.
The one in Conroe.
Yeah, but not here. And I looked at that, and as soon as I walked in the room, it smelled old. And I could see the problem. It was old, and they were little. And they said, "How'd you like to be commander?" Because the guy had been commander, been there for years, and he couldn't get anybody to replace him. And so I became commander. And I said, "I'll give you 2 years. It's all I got the energy for." And my first goal was to get young members, and I got them. When I left after 2 years, every position was occupied by a Gulf War or an Afghan veteran. One of the things I didn't get to do, I didn't have time to form an auxiliary. And so the current commander has made that his goal.
That's Bobby Bernesky.
It's Bobby Bernesky. So that's what I'm here primarily to talk about today, if we ever get around to it.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that, because Jack Durish again joining us. We're going to dig into that. Let's take a break real quick.
Okay.
We've heard a little bit of the story, and by the way, Captain Jack is, if you haven't already figured out, a great storyteller. He's also an author, and he's got several books. You can just search for Jack Durish on Amazon and find out all of his great work. But he's brought one by to us, and we'll save that for another day, because I want to have you on and talk more about that journey. But we're going to stay focused today on the auxiliary coming up with the VFW. Yeah. When you hear the word auxiliary, if you grew up in the VFW like me, you immediately think women's auxiliary. That may not be the case. And so we'll find out here in just a moment. We're going to take a brief break. And, hey, maybe if you have a question for Jack, too. You know, it's always a privilege to be able to talk to a veteran and someone who is just very involved in a community. Maybe this morning you've got a question, or you're thinking about something that you'd like to ask Jack. Text that in to 936-339-0139. Or for those of you on the social media feeds, feel free to comment as well. But let's take a brief break for about a minute or so. We'll be back, and we'll continue the conversation. We will stay here on the FM this morning, an extended interview as we learn more about our VFW here in Huntsville. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Faith has a new frequency. The Spirit of Huntsville. KHSPLP, Huntsville, Texas. Spirit 94.3. All right, friends, back at it here as we continue on this journey. Time now is
7:31. Welcome in on Good Morning Huntsville. Underwriting support for this program is made possible in part by Sam Houston Memorial Funeral Home. They are online at SHMFH.com since 2002. Again, Sam Houston Memorial Funeral Home. Also, Elliott's Jewelers, his website, elliotsjewelers.com. Hey, if you're waking up this morning, you're probably already awake. If you're about to go outside, you're going to notice it's a little chilly. When I walked out the door, it was 42 degrees. It's now 47, but we're going to warm up quickly. Sunny and a beautiful day on the horizon, 74 degrees. Also this weekend looking good as well. How about tomorrow, 78 and sunny. Rain back in the forecast, though, Sunday night. We've got a 40% chance as another little cold front moves in. And Monday night, we could be teetering on a frost as it will be down to 36 degrees and a high. Monday of only 54 degrees. Monday night, 36. And then Tuesday, it's only going to be 63, but things clearing up. So we do have a beautiful weekend on the way, despite a little rain that we need on Sunday. Well, we are continuing on an extended segment this morning with our good friend Captain Jack joining us today, giving you a little bit of his life. He is a former U.S. Army captain, served in Vietnam, and an author. He has several books. You can search on Amazon, just Jack Durish, and find out more about that. But this is a man who is, all about trying to find ways to get things done, and he does that, and he's done it here in our community. After moving here 5 or so years ago, got involved with our local VFW post, and going to enlighten us on some things that I didn't know about. As you said earlier, I like the phrase you said, a VFW brat, because I grew up in the VFW. My dad was a post commander. But talk about specifically the auxiliary, because, again, every time I hear the word auxiliary in the VFW, I think of women's auxiliary. That may not be the case.
I told you I learned to shop VFW posts, American Legion posts, whatever, when I was living in California. And one of the posts I visited was Laguna Beach VFW post. And there were only 5 men left. And that was the total
in that post.
Membership of that post.
Wow.
5 very old men. And they had an auxiliary of about 20. And most of those were widows of former members that had passed away. And ultimately, the post finally shut down about a year before I left there. I heard, or maybe after I got here, I got word that they had shut down. So the auxiliary, we don't have an auxiliary here. And it's something that I had wanted to do when I was commander, but I had too many other problems to fix. And so the new commander, Bobby Bernesk, he's taken that on as one of his goals. And I have been providing the promotional support. I'm the webmaster for the Post website, and I also do PR. I do the social media and that kind of thing. And I've been studying AI for the past year, making animated videos, promoting auxiliary, and posting those on the social media to drive traffic to the website where it's got all the information of what an auxiliary is. So generally, we usually think of it as women's auxiliary because it was basically the wives of post members. But now we have women serving in combat zones. They were there in Vietnam and Korea, but they like nurses, that kind of position. Now we have them doing all kinds of things, and it's just this is age. As soon as I start talking like that, a story pops in my head, and it's like, tell him. No, it's not on the subject. Shut up. But there was a great story of a girl who enlisted in the Army Reserve, and suddenly she got deployed after only being in a few months.
Wow.
She was deployed for the when we went in to drive the Iraqis out of Kuwait, and they made her a truck driver of one of these articulated tank trucks. It just is 4 wheels, 2 wheels on the cab, two wheels under the tank, and then it's got a stiff arm connecting them, so that it's a rigid vehicle. And she didn't know how to drive a truck of any kind, let alone something as complicated as this. And he said, "Don't worry, you'll have an assistant with you." Well, he know anything? No. But, well, she didn't have an assistant. And they'd only taught her how to use the forward gears when the campaign took off. And they said, "It's okay. You're only going one direction. Just follow the guy in front of you." And she hit a landmine, blew a tire out, and the convoy passed her. And she spent the night in the desert, no one in sight.
Oh, my
She's
goodness.
sleeping all alone. And she's praying, maybe an Iranian or Iraqi will show up and I'll surrender to him. Anything, to being there alone. And the next day, the engineering company comes by and they fix the tire for her. They say, "Follow the tracks." The convoy tracks were still there, so she's following the tracks. And then she spent another night alone in the desert, and when she woke up, the wind had blown away the tracks.
Oh, no.
So now she's sitting, she doesn't have a compass, she doesn't have anything. And all of a sudden, a flight of Apache helicopters circle her and land, and she has a tank load of exactly what they need. So they fuel their helicopters, and they said, "This one guy's going to stay back. He's going to cover you, and he'll show you the way to go." And so they just took her along as their personal fuel depot. It was the craziest story.
She became an unsung hero, though.
No
Didn't
kidding.
realize it.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Oh,
Wow.
my God. So, yeah, I'm sorry. So, yes, we have women serving. So a spouse, now we talk in terms of the auxiliary, can be a spouse of a qualified veteran. A qualified veteran is a veteran who served honorably or who is currently serving honorably in the armed forces and has deployed to a combat zone. They have, whenever you deploy into combat, you earn a ribbon that says you served in this campaign. I have the Vietnam campaign medal, and I have 3 little bronze stars, and they're battle stars. So I was there for 4 campaigns. So that's my proof. I qualify for the VFW. In any event, so if you're the spouse of a qualified veteran, you can join the auxiliary. So now it's men and women. Then they also have, now that we've learned that, we've also found out in the charter that children and grandchildren of qualified veterans can also join. That the parent of a qualified veteran can join the auxiliary. Siblings of qualified veterans can join. So that gives us we have a much broader audience. You know, when you look at all the people who've served, we're only about 1% of the total population have served in the armed forces. And of those, it's only a minute portion have actually deployed into combat.
What about, I was sitting here thinking, Jack, if you don't mind me asking just as you're talking, because like you said, your mind will wander into stories. My mind wanders away, and then I forget what I was going to ask you. For me, you know, my dad was commander and a life member of the local VFW in Georgetown. I did not serve. My dad is no longer with us. Could I be a part of the auxiliary, or do they have to be active and involved?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
So, yeah, it's, you know, the veterans are going to die, but that does not end your qualification. Now, what does become difficult is proving your qualification. Do you have a copy of your dad's DD-214? And if you do, that document will show that DD-214 and before, like Korean veterans, I think there was a different form number. We tend to talk in the acronyms of the service, and we talk in form numbers. You have to have a DD-214. You have a 201 file. You know, that's in our vocabulary. So DD-214 is a summary record of your service. On there, it gives all the information about who you are, where you enlisted from, date of birth, education level. What were your military schools you went to? what were your skills, what were you assigned to do, what branch of service, all these things are on there, and all the awards you won.
So this wouldn't work right here, Joe. I'm going to show the people real quick just to honor my dad. There's my dad. There's his. That was years ago. I was at our local VFW in Georgetown visiting, and they had my dad's picture on the wall there, which was kind of, it said post commanders previous. And as you were talking, I said, well, I got a picture of him. I know we have those documents somewhere though, but I wanted to show that. That's my dad. So anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So membership is, and that was a great question to ask about, your dad's gone now, so could you still qualify? Yes, because you are qualified. His death does not end your qualification.
Awesome.
Okay. And like I say, the biggest problem with anybody who's going to come in that situation is coming up with the records, and they get a lot of requests for records. There was a fire at the St. Louis Archives number back in the mid 50s, and a lot of records were destroyed.
My grandfather, was apparently, he was injured in combat, and there was something to do with a Purple Heart.
Yeah,
and
that'd be a Purple Heart.
Yeah, and he never wanted to receive. He's like, well, I just did what I was called to do, and and the records of what happened to him burned up in those, and it was probably in that one they lost all of it.
So although you see, you did it again. Sorry, folks, it was his fault this time. My daughter, my younger daughter, when she was going to go to college, looking for scholarship opportunities, she came to me one day and she was angry. She said, "What?" I said, I could have had a scholarship. You cost me." And I said, "What?" and well, the incident was one time I was given a platoon as a base camp security platoon to shut me up about getting a platoon. And I was out with the whole company one time. We had some people come in and over the berm and steal some ammunition and go trotting off to the rubber plantation with it, and we went after them. And I took a fire team and tried to cut them off, and the company commander forgot, and they saw movement out there, so he brought the whole company online, was going to open up on us. And luckily, this other lieutenant sent a runner to catch up with me and say, come back quick, we're going to be shooting there. So I got back through the tree line just as they opened up. I was angry. Have you ever heard the expression hopping mad?
Oh, yeah.
I was hopping up and down in front of this captain, calling him many things that I could not say
here on this station.
Right. And he was trying to calm me down, and I come through some barbed wire, and my uniform was ripped, and I was bleeding from my arm. And he says, "You're wounded. You can get a Purple. I'll put you in for a Purple Heart for that." And that just made me angrier. No, that Purple Heart is not for friendly fire. The Purple Heart is for enemies shooting me, and that was right. At any rate, so I refused that offer from him, and she says, "I could have gotten $2,000 scholarship." I said, "Is that what my life is worth to you? $2,000? Here, have $2,000."
Wow. Well, you never know, where the stories are going to go, and just everything that we go through in life has a story. And Jack, that's what I love about you. I'm just so thankful for the stories that you have, and I'm thankful for your service to our country, and I'm also thankful for your service here to VFW Post 5871 and bringing information about this auxiliary that people can join. I want to go back to that just briefly, because someone may be listening or watching on social media saying, I've been interested, I want to get involved. What all does that entail? What do you do in the auxiliary?
The auxiliary they supplement the post. Like I say, the auxiliaries will typically be a larger group because of the larger population we can pull from than the post membership itself. And as the post gets older, they've got a little more energy than the older members. So the auxiliary does get involved in a lot of the same things. We work hand in hand on the same projects. but they also have other projects that they are a little better suited for. And they have actually, for example, the VFW has had long time these scholarship programs, essay competitions, Patriots Pen, Voice of Democracy, for junior high or middle school level kids and high school level kids, and they're pretty substantial, up to a $5,000 cash prize for the Patriots Pen for middle school students, and up to a $35,000 scholarship for high school students to go to college or trade school.
Wow.
Which I love that one. And I've been the chairman. I was the chairman of that activity in California, and I've been doing it here. They help with that, and they have also extended those programs into the elementary school levels to get kids involved in patriotic kinds of activities. Anything from coloring to, drawing pictures, making dioramas or something. So they can do a lot of things working with children that some of the old men sometimes are not that skilled at. We're not the nurturing side of the group, especially those of us who have served in combat. We see a kid and it's like, straighten up, kid. Just,
yeah, I need to sit up straight. I'm sorry, Jack.
Yes, that's better. So at any event, so there's many activities, and as a matter of fact, if you go to the website, and we really got VFW5871.org, O-R-G, that right on the landing page, there's a little animation about joining the the auxiliary. You click on that, and it takes you to the entry page about auxiliary. And one of the pages talks about the activities of the auxiliary, and there's a whole bunch of them. And I even subdivided them, and so you click on a category, and it expands so you can see different things that are included there. And there's far too many. Just because I built the page doesn't mean I remember the page.
Yeah.
Not at 83. Okay. But so there's the activities, and of course there's the socialization, and there's one other thing that an auxiliary member can do that a non-auxiliary member can't do. If my wife had known about this back when she was trying to encourage me to join, she was pushing me to join. And like most men, we get that little donkey in us going, not a political thing, but, we dig our heels in, no. But she could have joined the auxiliary and led me in.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yeah.
So I sort of put that in as an additional idea. I even made an animation about that idea, that you're pushing, it doesn't get anywhere. Put your auxiliary hat on and lead them in.
Yeah, I like that.
So there's and again, the socialization. When the guys came back from World War II, it took months to get back home. They were all together crossing on a boat or something, and they had time to decompress. I never forget one comedian at the Improv. He did a story. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he was talking about it. He says, one day I was my platoon was heading out in patrol, and somebody grabbed me and said, "You're not going." He said, "Why?" He said, this is your date to go home. It's called DEROS, date expected return from overseas. And he says, it's a DEROS date. And he totally lost track of it. Mm. And so he says, they took my weapon and all my gear and threw me on a helicopter, took me to Tonsanut, threw me on a jetliner, and pew. He said, 48 hours later, I'm standing in the concourse of the airport in Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, I was walking from the gate to the luggage area to get my duffel. And it suddenly dawned on me, I didn't know, I was totally disoriented. I stopped. And I'm standing there, and you can smell the jungle on me. I still smell like Vietnam.
Wow.
And I didn't know where I was. And all of a sudden, this guy's in my face screaming at me, "Murderer!"
Oh, man.
So I murdered him. And he was so droll in his presentation. It was so unexpected. I about fell off the sofa into the floor, laughing at that. But we did not have that chance to decompress.
Yeah.
And we did not come back home with our buddies. And it left a lot of problems. It left a lot of problems. And I didn't realize it till many years later that even I had. Mine was a survivor's guilt. I trained to be an infantry officer. One of my first problems to solve was fixing up the casualty reporting for the division. It was a total mess. So I ran into a guy I'd gone through OCS with, Officer Candidate School with, and he was heading down. He's infantry lieutenant heading down to see his take over a platoon in our 2nd Brigade. And I said, well, I get all over the countryside. I'm everywhere. If maybe I'll run into you, we can have beer together. 2 weeks later, I was writing a letter home to his bride. He had been killed in action.
Yeah.
And boy, did it hit me then. That's when I walked to G1. I said, okay, enough of this. I want my platoon. I want my platoon now. And that's when they gave me a base camp defense platoon.
Yeah.
But we need that socialization that we missed. So being a member of the VFW and our spouses, they need to decompress from putting up with us. We are not easy people to be married to or to be the parent of or to be the brother of or the child of. We come back totally different people.
Yeah.
We've had a great pause in our life. I just read this recently. Somebody used this term. It was a pause in our life. Our contemporaries, our peers went off and started their careers, their families, finished education, whatever. And I was gone for 5 years, and 5.5. And I came back with the same problem I had when I left law school. I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I still don't. But and you can see from my life that I never did figure that one out. But I had a very bad, I could not go near the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And so our spouses need that opportunity to socialize with other spouses, the children to socialize with other children who are living with a veteran who was in the combat zone. So, yeah, the auxiliary can provide them with the same kind of healing that we need.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I appreciate you bringing all of this to our attention. We'll wrap up here in just a few minutes. Again, Jack Durish, Captain Jack, joining us today. Some very important information, great life stories, and just great leadership with our VFW, and seeing the fruit of those 2 years that you gave it your all, not only giving it your all when you served our country, but continuing to give it your all serving our community, and we're seeing the fruit of that now. We want to encourage you, go to the website online. More information can be found at vfw5871.org. That's vfw5871.org. Jack, I'm looking at the studio clock here. We got about another minute. Just maybe any final thoughts before we wrap up, and I'm going to end the show with you today as well. This is one of those special episodes to where I didn't want to break and say, hey, we'll see you later. We'll catch up soon. I wanted you to share the story because I think a lot of people need to hear the story. And I want it to be encouragement to everyone out there that if you know a veteran, You don't know how much I wish that I could sit down at this table and just talk to my dad right now. And having you here, sharing that story, reminded me of that as well. And I want to encourage people that if you know a veteran or you have a veteran in your family, sit down and talk and let them share the stories, because the stories are meaningful, and it's something that if you don't, like me, and I don't ever look back and beat myself up, but I regret not sitting down with my dad and just talking a lot like this. So any final comments, Jack, before we close it out today, my friend?
Okay, on another subject, one of the competitions that the VFW sponsors is Teacher of the Year. And again, that's been my purview, one of my jobs. And we've gone 2 years without coming up with even one nominee for Teacher of the Year. Now, there's a local award. It's not the small cash prize, a certificate. But for the teacher who advances through district, through state, to national, the national prize winner gets a free trip to Washington, gets their prize, gets a tour, meet people. And the school also gets an equal cash prize. And I'm sorry, I think it's $5,000.
Is this open to any teacher in Walker County or just with Huntsville ISD? Or?
This would be, well, we cover Walker County. And because the post in Madison County had to close during the pandemic, we have extended our area to cover them or help them start a post of their own up there again. But it's kind of hard to do that.
Sure, yeah.
So until they do, we've been covering veteran needs up there as well.
So the ask this morning is maybe for somebody out there to think of that teacher that's made
Think of
such
that.
a
Come on,
positive.
people. I know there's good teachers around here. I mean, when I was at Dana Point, one of our nominees won the national prize, and he was a music teacher.
And you said it's been a couple of years since the VFW has nominated here, right?
We had one before, but now we've gone through a dry spell 2 years. I'm not even getting a nominee. So
well, we'll get the word out for that.
Get the word
sure.
out for that.
Yeah.
I know there's some good teachers around here.
Well, good word, Jack. Well, hey, my friend, I appreciate you. We'd love to have you back. You're welcome anytime. You got the link, so you're always welcome anytime, and appreciate all that you do. What a great morning and a great interview today. Learning more, not just about your life, which is so important, and you had said 83 years young, and that's one thing in Huntsville. People lie about their age because, Jack, I don't think you're a day over 68. So
I'm getting carded again.
Well, friends, that'll wrap it up. Jack, thank you. Great interview this morning, my friend. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I said you're a great interviewer.
Awesome. Well, that will wrap it up here. Time is almost 9 o'clock, and thank you for being with us today. And again, I'll put together an article on our website at hellohuntsvilletx.com a little bit later on over today or this weekend. We'll highlight those things. Be thinking about that teacher, and also be thinking about the auxiliary with the VFW. You can find out more information online at vfw5871.org. With that, we will wrap it up. Again, thank you to our underwriters, Elliott's Jewelers, online at elliottjewelers.com, and also Sam Houston Memorial Funeral Home, their website, SHMFH.com. I'll be back on the air at 11:30 to 1 as we have our show Lunch Break, so make sure to keep it tuned in to 94.3 FM. We also play music in between those segments. But for now, as I end every broadcast, reminding you that we're not strong enough alone to make it on our own. We need each other. So please, provide a word of encouragement, lend a hand of support. I promise somebody out there this day needs you. We'll see you back a little bit later today. God bless you, Huntsville, and have a great day. And Jack, thanks again for hanging out. It was great this morning. See you, my friend.
Thank you.